What's up, everybody? Good night. How are you all doing? If you're just now joining the chat tonight, we're going to be talking about being burnt out. So if you're a hairstylist and you feel like you're bored or you're burnt out, chime in. Let me know where you're coming from. And yeah, we're going to get started really soon. So go ahead and drop some comments. Let me know where you're coming from. And if this is your first time on the live, let me know. My name is Essence China, and I am the founder of Rare Essence Academy. I'm a hairstylist of 20 plus years, a salon owner, as well as an educator. And I love helping hairstylists figure out how to get from one level of business to another level of business. So if you are in that place, or if you're a part-time stylist or a full-time stylist, let me know. Let me see you in the chat. So I'm just gonna sit here for a second and let more people come in, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. But if you feel that you have resonated with, if you received the email about being burnt or bored, definitely comment in the comment section so I can see that. Oops. And I am personally in Phoenix, Arizona right now. So are you burnt or are you bored? Are you burnt or are you bored? ATL in the house. Thank you, thank you. Oh, this is a different view. Okay. I kind of like that view. Hi, Martin. Thank you. Y'all silly. So come on in the room. Let's go. Let's get started. All right, so let's get into it while we allow some stylists to get into the room. And honestly, even if you're not a hairstylist, I believe that this would speak to you, because many times as creatives, we get to these places in our businesses or even in our career paths where we just feel burnt out. And we don't necessarily understand where it's coming from, but we definitely have to get to the root of it, because every time that we find ourselves in stuck places, we have to get to the root in order to break free. So even if you're not a hairstylist, this may apply to you. For me, I've definitely been in those places as a hairstylist. I did hair for, as I said, 20 years ago. Hey, Maria. And I got to a place in my business a few times where I realized I was just completely like out of alignment, very much tired, very much found myself dragging to do something that I actually love to do. And I think that's the biggest frustration with hairstylists. It's like they know that they love what they do. However, there's still like this frustration within them, and there's a level of feeling just overwhelmed, right? And we have to get down to the point of why we're overwhelmed. It's like, I love the hair, but there's something about what I'm doing that's not working for me, that's actually draining me. And so we have to find out what those draining points may be. And so I have a few points today that I'm gonna really like hone in on, so you can really figure out why it is that you are in this place. And also the ability to ask yourself, like, is it that I'm bored, or is it that I'm actually burnt out, right? Am I really bored, or am I burnt out? And so the first point that I want to get to when it comes to feeling burnt out really speaks to an imbalance. And I feel like many times stylists are really unbalanced. And one of the reasons is because we don't have anybody to tell us what to do as hairstylists. We work for ourselves, right? And because we work for ourselves, sometimes we're almost looking for permission, or we don't even realize that we govern ourselves and we have to make those decisions. And so me being a salon owner for 16 years, what I realized is that many stylists do not take care of themselves even physically, right? And so when I think about some of the things that I saw that would really run a hairstylist in the ground, one of them was that they did not take regular breaks, right? Because clients are coming in, they may be running behind, or they got clients back to back because they're trying to service as many clients as possible. And what happens is you end up looking up at the end of your day and realizing, like, dang, I ain't take no breaks. I haven't drunk no water. You know what I mean? And so this is not sustainable, right? And I think even I did that. I did that very early when I first started doing hair. And at that time I was young, so I didn't necessarily understand like, oh, I need to take care of my body, because I just had crazy energy. And specifically when I opened my salon, I was really trying to make sure that my salon succeeded, and so I neglected myself. And so when we start to neglect ourselves, when we're not properly eating and we're not taking breaks and we're not allowing ourselves that time that we need to be able to be refreshed for the next client, like, you're definitely gonna feel burnt out. And so when I think about, a lot of the stylists that I see, sometimes even that feeling of burnt out and the reason why they're not taking breaks stems from a deeper issue, right? The issue a lot of times is, one, not knowing their worth. Two, having fear. Another reason is because they lack boundaries. And so a lot of times stylists, even moving on, is like, they don't feel that they can, I guess, communicate with their clients to tell them, hey, I actually need to step away for a second. Now, one of those reasons is because they may be improperly booking themselves, right? So you may be improperly booking yourself, and because of that, you don't even have the time to even adjust. And so what you don't want to do is like take breaks while you have clients, because that's their time. But you also need to recognize how to schedule your breaks so you have the appropriate amount of time for yourself, because it's not fair to you and it's not fair to the client, because you end up dragging and may even have an attitude, right? Because a lot of people get hangry. You may even have an attitude and not even know that you're carrying that energy because you haven't first serviced yourself, right? We're here to service clients, but at the same time, how can we serve if we haven't first served ourselves? And so physically, you have to start thinking about the things that are really going to nourish you as an individual, as a human being, aside from being a hairstylist. Like, some people don't necessarily want to hear this, but like, we need to be working out, right? These are the things that actually put us in a better position to actually service our clients. That brings balance to us, and not just balance to us from a standpoint of, just being toned, but overall it balances us when it comes to our hormones. It balances us when it comes to our energy. And so I really would emphasize like finding out what is going to be something that you can do, even if it's not necessarily going to the gym, but taking walks, right? Get to yourself. So that's one thing that I would recommend when it comes to physically giving yourself some level of a break, because once you realize that you've been giving yourself a break, you're going to realize like that feeling of being burnt out is not necessarily going to be there as much. Another reason that I find that stylists feel burnt out is because we take in a lot. We take in a lot, not just from our homes and from our daily lives, but even from our clientele. And I think that, being a hairstylist, we are known as like therapists. Clients, they feel comfortable, they trust us, and so they end up opening up to us. But even in that opening up, a lot of times what can happen is that they share so much that we walk away to some degree feeling burdened. And now we got our own stuff that we're dealing with. And then we also may be processing whatever, all the clients that we've serviced and the things that they've been dealing with. And so how do you then begin to debrief from that? So emotionally, I find that a lot of stylists don't recognize how to really care for themselves. And so one of the things that I have done personally that has definitely helped me has been journaling. And journaling for me helps me to process those things, to release those things, whatever it is, number one, that I may be dealing with, whatever it is that, the things that are just weighing on me, because you have to have a level of release. Like when things come onto you, you have to know how to process those things all the way through. Otherwise, we end up holding and harboring all of that. And then we find ourselves being burnt out and don't even necessarily know why, because there's no real thing to point to that's tangible that we can recognize why you're feeling burnt out. And so if you are feeling burnt out, you have to one, figure out if it's from a physical standpoint. Is it just energetically? I was supposed to go live a few days ago and I was like, I don't have the energy. It takes a lot of energy to talk, and I want to be in my best energy to speak and to give out the information that I want to give out. And so physically I just wasn't there. So I was like, well, I'm gonna just come back later. Right? So is it physical? Is what you're dealing with physical? And even when it comes to physical, we have to also look at how we are taking care of ourselves as it pertains to the clothing that we wear, the shoes that we wear, because you're standing on your feet all day long. I mean, unless you have a stool that you're sitting on, but even then you want to make sure that number one, you're standing on proper mats and that you have the proper shoes, because all of this stuff, the smallest of things that we don't even pay attention, can actually drain us. And so taking account for that, and then also taking account from an emotional standpoint. So journaling would be definitely one of the things that I would recommend for hairstylists who are looking to just get out of a place where they feel burnt out, because a lot of times it could just be from those emotional things. Another thing that I would completely recommend is therapy. And I know, and I talked about this in the times past, is like a lot of times there's this stigma, specifically in our community, about like going to see a therapist, or, you know, processing our information with somebody that we don't know and we don't even halfway trust them. But there are so many deep-rooted issues that many times go under the radar that we don't never address, and we don't even realize like why we're feeling weighed down. And it almost has nothing to do with your day-to-day, other than the trauma that now plays out in your life that it actually came from far back. And so when it comes to like really getting balance with yourself emotionally, therapy is something that I wholeheartedly recommend. And the third thing I would recommend when it comes to like being balanced would be having more structure in your business. Because many times stylists feel burnt out because they lack boundaries. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, like you lack boundaries. So now here it is, you have a business and you find yourself underpaid and overworked. So now you feel burnt out because you're actually doing the work for nothing almost, because now it is, here it is, you're opening it up way too early, you're staying way too late. And when you lack boundaries, it speaks more to your self-worth. You feel that you have to take care of people in a way that maybe you shouldn't even feel that way, right? But the feeling of obligation towards clients and family and friends cause you to overwork yourself, and now you're burnt out. You're burnt. And so these are the things that you really have to identify and get to the root and ask yourself, okay, why am I feeling the need to overwork myself? Why don't I have the courage to communicate? And once you decide what those things are, understand what those things are, you can start to address those things. And so when you start looking at your self-worth, you have to ask yourself, like how do I really value myself? Because the way in which you value yourself is the way in which you're teaching people to deal with you. And if you're not loving on yourself and you're not really giving yourself the breaks that you need, or processing your emotions like that, you wear it. And as you wear it, people will deal with you in the way that you deal with yourself. And so you really have to look at all of the things as it pertains to your business and how you function in your business, and how you can start bringing a level of balance to yourself, as well as a level of more structure that you adhere to for yourself. I always talk about your business can only grow to the extent that you do as a person, but if you allow your boundaries to be crossed, if you don't have the courage for yourself, like these are things that people will continually cross those boundaries because you haven't spoke up for yourself, and you will continually attract that type of clientele, right? And so as you change, your business changes. And so if you find that you're burnt out because you have not been able to speak up for yourself, then today's the day, right? Today's the day. Hey, Deidre. Hey, Kashia Sharice. Balance is key. Absolutely. And so what is it that brings you balance? For me, I know that what brings me balance is having a routine. I know people who get up and they're in such a rush that they don't give themselves what they need even in the morning. And for me, it's just like, okay, I can't leave the house until this has happened, whether it's journaling, whether it's stillness, whether it's prayer. What are those things that you know, without this, I'm unbalanced? And once you recognize those things, you have to start giving yourself that time to make sure that you have your routine. So when you leave the house, you're not leaving your house stressed. You're not leaving your house feeling rushed. And then you bring that rush energy into the salon. Like that's not fair to you, but it's certainly not fair to the environment that you're working in, whether it's your coworkers, your friends, your clients. Like that's not fair. And so you have to start saying, I got to start loving myself. And what does it mean to love myself? Because specifically as us as entrepreneurs, where we pretty much can almost dictate how much money we make based on how much we work, sometimes we find ourselves like a little bit chasing a dollar too much and not necessarily chasing our own inner wealth or our own inner health. And that's where you're going to have to make some adjustments because it's just not that serious. Your health and your mind and your like it's just not that serious. So we have to start setting routines, executing boundaries, and feeling very confident and yeah, you can hit that one. Feeling very confident in expressing those things. So the imbalance. So somebody say, I need to get balance in my life. This is the only way that I'm going to find myself not being burnt out. Another thing that I will say is that even on an annual basis, even biannually, figure out what it is that you need to do for yourself, whether you need to go take a trip, you know, like what is it that you like? For me, I love being in the mountains. I love being in nature. I love being on a beach. I have to do, those are the things that reset me. Those are the things that recharge me. And so if you find yourself not giving to yourself in ways that's going to help you just have the balance, because you could be doing something that you love, but if you do it too much, you're going to find yourself resenting the very thing that you love just because you haven't set this balance in place for yourself. So is it, I don't know, taking a trip, you know, it's got to be something. I love riding ATVs. I got to go ride ATVs like a couple times a year just because it just exhilarates me, right? But what exhilarates you? What brings you life outside of this creative expression of doing hair? And as you begin to find those things, those are the things that are going to help you find the balance in your life. And so we don't want to be lopsided, like I'm just all hair. You know, for me, I was very much all hair because I was building my business, and I truly, truly love hair to the point where I will go on vacation. I remember this one time I went to Jamaica, and while I was in Jamaica, we were just at like some place. I had met this guy, and his hair was really short. And my friend was like, "Oh, she does hair," and I'm like, "Girl, why did you tell him that?" And so he was so hyped, and his hair was so short, right? But in my heart of hearts, because I love doing hair, I was like, you know, I could grip that because I love challenging myself. So he was like, "For real? You could braid this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So he goes and gets a comb. He come back like 30 minutes with a comb. Like, I mean, can you braid me up? And because I love doing hair, honestly, it wasn't a big thing because I'm fast at what I do. I end up doing his hair. It probably took me like all of 45 minutes. But even then I realized like, okay, I'm not necessarily honoring my vacation, right? But because I loved it so much. And so sometimes we can love things so much that we don't even realize like we actually need a break from it, right? So give yourself the appropriate break that is necessary. The other thing that is going to help you to just like get out of this place of frustration is realizing like, sometimes you're really just bored and you're not necessarily burnt out. You know, sometimes we have this frustration. We don't know necessarily where this frustration is coming from, but it can be from the simple fact that you're bored. And if you're bored, especially when you're doing something creative, the question is, are you bored because you're in a place that you shouldn't be in? Like, do you lack fulfillment and therefore that's why you just feel bored? Like, I'm over this. Like, you think about it, like kids who are in school who, you know, they should almost be in a grade or two higher, like the work is just too easy for them, or they're just in the wrong place. Like, are you even potentially in the wrong place? And I think a lot of people tend to do things that they can do versus what they were created to do, right? So yeah, I can do certain things, but do you really love it? Like, is it something that you really feel like you've been called to do versus you just can do? And so when it comes to hair, I think that, you know, specifically with like the natural hair revolution, everybody was going natural. And it's so easy to just be able to palm roll a lock or something like that, right? And so what happened was a lot of people just jumped into the industry just because they seen the bag. And I'm not saying that's you, but if you find yourself being burnt out, like, you gotta really identify, is this what I'm even supposed, like, is this even what I'm supposed to be doing? Because I personally believe that anything that you're called to do, there's a level of exhilaration and excitement that comes with that. And if you find yourself bored, it could be because you're out of alignment. Right? Yet hair is cool, but is that what you're supposed to be doing? Maybe you're supposed to be an artist. Maybe you're supposed to be a photographer. Maybe you're supposed to be a makeup artist. Like, it could be anything, but you have to really start asking yourself, like, is this the reason why I'm feeling like, out of place? Is this the reason why I'm kind of like over it? I'm kind of bored. Or it could be because, I talk about this often, the grace has lifted. You're bored because at one point in time, this was what was being blessed and this is what you were called to do. But now it's time for you to shift into another place. Like, this is a reason why you could be bored. And if it's time for you to shift, this is another reason why I feel like we have to get to the place where we start having a level of boldness and bravery that we believe enough that whatever it is that we are being almost ushered into, that we don't hold on to the old thing, because the old thing, like, it's so familiar and it's so safe. But you bored. But you burnt out. But you want to stay there because it's safe. Like, we have to get to the place where we recognize, like, we walk by faith. And if you're going to walk by faith, it's going to require you to do some things that are scary. And if you're bored or burnt out, maybe it's because it's time for you to shift, because the grace is lifted and you're no longer called to be there anymore. And so for me, that happened when 2016, I had already known for years it was time for me to come from behind the chair. And I had already been preparing my clients for years. And I felt like the time was nearing very soon. And so I was coming to the salon and I was dragging, and I felt bad for my clients, because I knew that I was no longer like into it. I could do it, but my heart wasn't there, and I knew that my attitude was shifting, and I didn't want to give them that attitude, but I was feeling stuck, and I was feeling like I need to figure out what's next. But I personally knew what's next, right? And so for many of you who feel like you're burnt or you're bored, you have to ask yourself, like, is there something that I could be doing, or I feel like I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm scared? Is it because not just that I'm scared, but I just don't even necessarily know how? Like, how do I make this transition from being a hairstylist into this next thing, because I've never been here before? And so I'm coming to the salon, I'm dragging, and I'm doing the hair, and then I got to this place where I had already been teaching, and I'd already been doing some level of speaking, but I just realized, like, I have to stop. And I'm be honest with you, there were clients that were trying to keep me in my stuck place. Maybe not by intention, but just because they were like so used to me doing their hair that it almost made me feel as though like I was obligated and like I had to stay in this stuck place just to serve them. And so I remember like this one particular day where I just said, I cannot do this anymore. But I also knew what I had to do, and it was going to require me to step out on faith. And so if you are in this stuck place where you feel bored, or if you feel burnt, like, what's your next? Somebody needs to get a notebook out right now and write down what it is that you're afraid to do. Because some of you, your next is not necessarily leaving the chair, but your next is allowing yourself to come out of the box and be more authentic and be more creative. See, this is what happens with a lot of hairstylists. Even though we're creative, there's sometimes where we find ourselves following trends. And I feel like this whole world is all about following trends. And I'm I'm very heavyweight against it, right? Because I feel like we should create our own paths. And so what happens is when we follow trends, we're not being true. I'm gonna say that again. When we follow trends, we're not being true. What do I mean by that? Like, we find ourselves doing what the crowd is doing what everybody else is doing. And what happens is we find ourselves being boxed in. So let me give you an example. Knotless braids is a trend. And that's great if you love to do them. But if you find yourself doing them just because that is the trend and you don't even enjoy it, guess what? You're gonna feel bored, or you're gonna feel burnt out. Why? Because you're doing something that you weren't even supposed to be doing to begin with. What is it exactly that you love to do? Like, you gotta start learning yourself and learning what it is that you like, and learning how you could show up as your best you. And as you show up as your best you should be there with all of your enthusiasm, all of your creativity, all of the motivation that is necessary to get the job done. But if you find yourself coming to work, showing up, doing whatever it is that you were called to do, or that you are doing with that lack of energy, then something is off. Something is off. And so we have to figure out, like, what's off. What's up, Justina? What's up, Takora? So what is it? What is it for you? Are you feeling like you are following trends? Do you feel like you're not being authentic to your true self? I remember, and I say this often, I was doing micro braids because micro braids in the 90s was it, right? Everybody wanted micro braids. And after I did them for a certain amount of time, and I mean probably like I used to do my own hair. Okay, let me just first start off and say that. I used to always do my own hair. My hair used to stay fresh, right? And so because I was already known as a braider, and because now I'm wearing micro braids, people started to request it. But I already knew it take me 8 hours to do my own hair. So I started doing them, and I was just like, it made me start disliking doing hair. And so some of you are doing something that you were not necessarily graced to do, enjoy doing, and now you feel burnt out, and it has nothing to do with you leaving the chair. It just means you need to leave the things that are not bringing you joy. What brings you joy? And so when we start to explore those things as creatives and start getting out the box and start being more authentic to ourselves, being more true to ourselves, and stop following trends, that's when we're going to find ourselves feeling like, oh, we free, right? Because if you feel burnt out, you're not free. If you feel bored, you're not free. So you have to figure out what's going to make me feel free. Do you think a bird is feeling like they're not free when they can fly? I feel like a bird is only going to feel, and I ain't calling y'all birds, but I feel like a bird is only going to feel boxed in when their wing is broke, when they can't do what they were created to do. So we got to start tapping in and asking ourselves, what is it in this season that I'm supposed to do? And let me get freed up to do it to the fullest of my ability. To the fullest. And again, it's going to require some courage. It's going to require some faith. It's going to require some trust. But I would rather be in a new space that allows me to be free to spread my wings than to be somewhere stuck, somewhere with a broke wing, feeling sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. Like if I would have still been behind the chair, y'all, it would have been a problem. And I'm amazing at it. Like I can still, y'all know my hairstyle is on the cover of Essence magazine. I can still kill hair. Like I just did some hair about 2-3 weeks ago for our mentorship. So we have our mentorship where we teach hairstylists how to execute flawless styles, whether it's flat twists, braids, precision parting, stitch braids, all of that live, right? Just like you're seeing me right now live, that's how we teach and train hairstylists. And so y'all know Adelaide pretty much does the instructing for that. And so one day I was like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and do a model's head. And I did her hair flawlessly, right? But when I look back at the footage, I was like, I'm out of place. Like, I can do it, but the season for me to do it has passed. And when you're in a season or in a place where the season has passed, you're going to be completely out of alignment. It's going to be like a sore thumb. Hey, Pink Moon. Pink Moon says, I feel that way. You hit the nail on the head. If you feel that way, we got to figure out like what exactly is going on here. What is that exactly is going on? Because the only way you're going to get out is to stretch out. And that means stretch out on faith. And so what I ended up doing at that time was, like I said, I communicated to my clients and I just said, you know what, I'm about to take this next thing full steam, which was the education. And so when we took the next thing, the education full steam, and I started traveling more frequently and doing the classes, I started to feel free. Was I scared? Absolutely. Did I actually know that was like, was I completely sure? No, but there was nothing else competing for that thing. What does that mean? So when we're in a stuck place and say God is showing us a new place, or at least we believe it's God, and there's nothing else competing for it, then that means that's what it is, right? And so, but at the same time, there's still just this fear and this level of uncertainty because we've never been there before. And so we're still just like a little hesitant and reluctant to step out because we're just like, listen, I don't know that place over there. I might sink. And if I'm going to sink, I'd rather just stay right here on this boat. You feel me? And so I decided to leap out on faith. And this is one of the things that I really want y'all to understand. The Bible says, without faith, it is impossible to please him. Without faith, it is impossible to please him. What does it mean? God is full of faith. And everything that he does is faith-based, right? So now he has his children here on this earth, and what brings him joy and what pleases him is that we step out on faith. And so he's always going to cause us to do something that we don't think that we can do in and of ourselves. Always. God is grand. He ain't going to have you doing nothing small, right? So because he calls you to do something grand, it's always going to require supernatural help. And so here it is. We're saying to ourselves, I don't know how. I'm scared. And he like, listen, in your weakness, I am made strong. My strength is made perfect. Like, so he's saying, just trust me, right? And as you trust him, he like, I'm so pleased with my daughter. I'm so pleased with my son. Why? Because now you're showing him that you believe. You're showing him like, oh, I'm just like my father. I'm just like my daddy. Like, I always say, like, I have facial expressions that resemble my mother and my father, right? When we move in faith, we're resembling God. We look like it's a mark of who he is. And so when we start to do the things that he has called us to do, whether we're scared or not, which you're always going to be scared, because if anybody sit here and say they done a new thing without being scared, I'm just like, what planet are you from? What planet are you from? Well, all right. That's my computer. And so, because the reality is everybody conquers it with courage and with boldness. Nobody is just like, oh, I'm just fearless. Nah, you're going to have some fear if you're going to be real with yourself. And so every step of my journey, when I stepped out of a bored place, when I stepped out of a burnt place, when I stepped out of even a broken place, it required me to step out on faith. It required me to do something I had never done before, had no clue if I was going to make it. But because I heard a word and because I trusted, I moved. And so y'all heard that song, when you move, I move, just like that. You got to get to the place where when God moves, I'm moving. Because if I'm not moving, I'm still going to stay in this place when guess what? There ain't no grace there. Come on. If I stay in this place that I'm no longer called to be, guess what? There's no grace. I just blessed myself on that one. Hold up. Hold on, y'all. Let me get a little drink. Takora, what you say? I already know what makes me happy, but I'm still afraid to step out, but I'm working on getting uncomfortable. You have to get uncomfortable. So it's like you're either going to stay in discomfort in a place that you're not supposed to be, or you're going to get in discomfort so you can get free. I'm going to say that one more time because that blessed me. You're either going to stay in discomfort, right? And now I done lost the whole line. Y'all gonna have to type it in the chat. But it was a rhyme in there somewhere. It was a All right. No, seriously, or we're gonna get in discomfort and get uncomfortable so we can get free. There we go. I just came to me. I'm either gonna be in a place of discomfort, in a place that I'm not supposed to be, or I'm gonna get uncomfortable in a place that's gonna make me free. If somebody don't write that down for a hip hop quotable for the month. So we gotta get to the place of embracing this discomfort. Some of you just need to embrace the discomfort of creating a routine for yourself. Some of you need to embrace the discomfort of tapping into these emotions that you haven't processed. Like, these are the things that are going to help us get out of that place. That's the only thing. We got to face it to get out of the place. Thank you, Takor. Go ahead, type it on the screen. Go ahead. You're either going to stay in discomfort or get uncomfortable. That's going to make us free. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, are you supposed to be in this place? Some of you know, like, yeah, for sure, I know I'm supposed to be in this place, but not in this way. Not in this way. I feel overworked. I feel underpaid. And really and truly, I need to go up on my prices, and I'm afraid. That was another bar. Let me stop. Listen, I'm overworked and I'm underpaid. And so now I have to get courage so I can start communicating my new worth. Especially if you've been investing in yourself, especially if you're in our mentorship and you know you're getting better, right? It's time for you to go up on your prices. And so it's not always that you're burnt. It's just you feel undervalued. But you only feel undervalued because you feel undervalued. How can somebody value you lesser than what you value yourself? If they do, they shouldn't even be in your life. Does that make sense? You set the value. When you recognize I am rare, come on now. Rare speaks to scarce. Rare speaks to not always seen. It means that, listen, we don't come around that often, okay? And because we don't come around that often, we are valuable. Price just went up. But see, you have to get to a place where you recognize that you're rare. And if you don't recognize you're rare, who else is going to tell you that? Who else is going to put that label on you other than God? And so a lot of times what happens is we're not in agreement with what God said about us. When God made us, come on now, he was like, and he made man, and it was very good. Not even just good, it was very good. But see, here it is now, we're not valuing ourselves, and we are over here working for pennies on the dollar, knowing we deserve more, but because we're so concerned about what a client may say or a person leaving us, we people pleasing at this point. Yes, price increase, because Mark, you might as well put them all up on there at this point. Price increase. We got to know our value. We got to know that we are rare, that there's nobody like us. But if there's nobody like us, that means that we have to do the things that the common don't do. What does that mean? If we feel burnt and we feel bored, some of it is because we're average. Ooh. Let me break that down because I don't want nobody's feelings to get hurt. We have to raise our standards. As we raise our standards, we raise our value. As we raise our value, we can raise our price. And when we raise our price, listen, burnt is out the door. Well, I only take 5 clients a day. Like, why am I taking 10? For what? When I'm making the same amount of money. See, this is you're rare. You're rare. But you got to get the revelation. See, everybody's rare. Everybody is rare. But everybody has not got the revelation, and when you don't have the revelation, you don't have the manifestation. If I have one more bar today, when you don't have the revelation, you don't have the manifestation. When you are rare, there should be signs that follow rare. But when you're unaware that you're rare, there are no signs because you don't even know how to show up as that. Kashia, thank you. And so we hear that often. Oh, well, there's only one of you. Oh, well, there's no one like you. But honestly, even as much as I heard that in the past, I didn't understand what that meant. How does that translate into the way that I live my life? Like, if I don't have a revelation of that, how can I get the manifestation of that? If I don't understand that, then how can I live it? How can I have the results and the fruit of that? You can't. So we can't just walk around and say we're rare and we're unique and we're this and that. Like we gotta understand it and we gotta live it. You gotta set a standard. You have to raise a bar. And so understand what it means to be rare. That's why people be walking around like I'm a queen, I'm a king. I'm like, but that behavior don't look like it. If you're a boss and if you rare and you just the best stylist in the world, like, are you tardy? Are you on time? I don't even want to get into this because I want to talk about branding in the next one. But like, we have to do the things that the common don't do. When you're rare, you have a whole nother level of standards to where it's like, dang, I love coming to this place. One of the greatest compliments that people have paid me throughout the years coming into my salon is like, y'all are so professional. This place is so clean. The fact that they even have to state that lets me know that they have not encountered that often. If you don't encounter that often, then that means that you're gonna value it at another price point. And people are gonna pay you because you're rare. They're gonna pay you better than they would pay the average person. So maybe we're burnt out because we're average. Yay? No, I mean, I'm gonna let that breathe for a second. Are we burnt out because we're average? Because when we're rare, we know our value, we know our price, and we set the standard and we do it nice. I mean, off the dome today. Y'all know I really want to be a rapper when it's all said and done. Like, I mean, it ain't over until God says it's over, right? So, getting the revelation so you can walk into the manifestation. When you're rare, it's rare that you should feel burnt out because you're giving yourself the love that you require. You're taking the breaks that you need. You're taking the trips that you need. You're showing up on time. You're loving on your clients in a way that they pay you well. And you're living a life that you want to live. Now, it took me about 30 minutes to get turned up, y'all. But I feel like I'm up. I feel like I'm up right now. When you're rare, you really should not feel burnt out. You really should not, because you love yourself and you're giving yourself what you need. I'm drinking my water. Okay, y'all, every time I'm live, I got my water right by my side. I promise I do not be planning these rhymes, y'all. They just be coming out all the time. You feel what I'm saying? Like, it just happens. It's Ben's fault. He right here behind the camera. But I don't know, if you're in the chat right now and you're feeling burnt out or you're feeling bored, I want somebody to type in the chat, what is it? Do you still feel burnt out? Do you still feel bored? Or are you really just lacking bravery for your next level? Are you burnt out, or are you bored, or are you lacking bravery for your next level? There's only a few options for it. Like, there's nothing else, because there is a free place. There is a place called freedom. But you got to figure out what that is. And so that's why I always tell stylists, you have to have vision for what success looks like to you. So here it is, you're bored right now, right? Or you're burnt out right now. But then to begin to craft the vision that you see for what freedom and success looks like. A whole vision. Make it vivid. Like, people say, oh, I want to be successful. And then if you ask them why they want to be successful or how do they want to be successful, they say, oh, well, I just want to help people. Well, everybody want to help people. How do you want to help people? Like, you should be able to paint a picture so vivid by speaking to me or writing it down that if I read it or if I hear it, like, I have a whole IMAX theater going on in my brain. Like, that's how clear it has to be to you. And when it gets clear to you in that way, now you can start making steps to move towards that. But some of y'all feel burnt out and bored because you don't have any vision and you don't even know what it looks like to you. So we got to get to the place where we figure out, like, what does that look like to me? What does it look like? Clarity. I need somebody to get clarity for themselves so they can get out of a bored place, so they can get out of a stuck place, so they can get out of a burnt place. Like, we need clarity. Because what happens is, again, sometimes we're following trends and we might be doing hair because so-and-so is doing hair. We might be doing hair just because we heard there's money in it. But what if that's not really the true and authentic vision for your life? What if that was cool for a minute, but now it's time to move on? If I was still behind the chair, I would be out of alignment with what is now for me. I did that for 20 years, and while I can still do it, and I may still do it from time to time, if I would have stayed there, I wouldn't have made room for what was next. I would have been in disobedience. So if you feel that you're in disobedience right now, I don't know. Maybe that's why you feel burnt, because ain't no grace there. Because when God is gone, ain't no grace on that. The details are important when it comes to business. What do you mean by that, Kashia? The details are important when it comes to business. Details are important when it comes to everything, but maybe you're speaking about the vision. You have to be very detailed. And some of you may say, well, dang, I don't know what's supposed to be next. Well, the Bible says write the vision and make it plain. So you begin to use your imagination and begin to write it down and just ask God to give you guidance in some more explanation as to what it is that he's saying about your life. But you got to start employing your own imagination. You may feel stuck because you haven't seen any growth, but you may not see no growth if there's no intention for the growth, if there's no vision for the growth. If there's no intention, if there's no vision, there will be no growth. We're going to be walking in circles. That's why I said in the live, a couple lives ago, I'm like, are we growing or are we going in circles? Because guess what? Going in circles and growing both require movement. So we can fool ourselves into think that we're growing, but we could be just going through the motions. I think I done gave y'all an earful today. Let me know if you have any questions in the chats. Let me know if you got any questions in the chat. I just want y'all to get out of a stuck place. I want y'all to get freed up. I want you to be in a place that brings you enthusiasm in that which excites you. But if it's going to excite you, it's also going to require you to do some things that you're uncomfortable to do. But that's where growth is. The growth is in the uncomfortability. The type of clients, what type of price you will charge, what you will be doing within your business, what area of that industry will you work in. Absolutely. So Kashia, what I feel like I hear you saying is that everybody who's creating a vision, who do you want to service, right? What is the price point that you would like to charge? What would you be doing within your business? What area of the industry would you work in? Because there's a lot of different areas. You got to get detailed. And if you know that there's a price point that you want to charge and you know that your skill set isn't there yet, this is where we got to start making investments in ourselves. Sometimes we feel burnt and bored is because we haven't invested in ourselves. We're dry, right? We going off the same information we've been going off for however long, and now it's just like we doing the same thing over and over again. Why? Because you have not introduced yourself to some different information that's going to bring a different result in your life. See, because when we keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and over again, how would you not feel burnt out? But see, you're only able to do that if you're operating off the same information. That's why you need to join my mentorship, or you may need a coach, because sometimes you need somebody to get into the details of what you've been doing to figure out what is the cycle that you keep habituating, that you keep on processing, so you can break out of that cycle into a new place. I know, Kashia, I didn't even mean to go in all these roads, okay? Thank you. I need you as a life coach, real talk. Listen, I do coaching. My coaching, you can go to rareessenceacademy.com and click on the coaching function. Tarshika, God used you tonight to speak directly to me. Praise God. Listen, I pray before I go live, right? Lord, use my vocal cords, because I don't know what to say. I do not know what to say. I got a couple notes right here, and even half the time I don't even be looking at them. I just be like, Lord, just use me. Because what I have learned is that with so much of what hairstylists need, and people in general, they need identity. Again, you have to understand that you're rare. And if you don't understand who you are, you'll never get to the place of doing what you're called to do in the level of authority and the level of power that you're supposed to do, right? So God gave me a revelation of who I was. My father told me years ago, he said, you're going to be a greater speaker than you ever were a hairstylist. That was hard for me to conceive. Why? Because my hairstyle's been on the cover of Essence magazine. It's been all over the world. And I feel like I done reached the height of hairstyling. So how am I going to be a greater speaker than a hairstylist? I didn't have the vision. I didn't have the faith for it. But I started to come into alignment with it because I realized that wasn't just my father speaking. He was speaking by the Spirit. And so as I began to do it, I started to hear myself and I started to see myself and I started to realize, like, oh, snap, that is me. So what happened is I came into agreement with what was said about me. And as I came into agreement with what was said about me, a level of boldness came through. Why? Because now I believe. But when you don't believe what is spoken about you, you're here with it. And you will never be able to walk in the boldness of it because you got to come into agreement. You got to come into alignment. And so you got to figure out what has been spoken about me from the beginning of time. From the beginning of time. And those things are fixed. This is what I tell people. The things that God has said about you are fixed. They will not change. So what happens is when we find ourselves burnt, bored, frustrated, it's because we're out of alignment. We got to come into agreement, and that agreement is scary because he's calling you up. And when he calls you up, it's going to require faith. It's going to require courage. Be ye strong and courageous. Joshua 1:8. Be very strong. Be very courageous. Why do we need courage? Why do we need strength? Why do we need any of the things that he's asked us to do? Why? Because it is going to require us to do something we didn't think that we could do in and of ourselves. What's up, Ghana in the house? So now, because I personally have come into agreement with what was said about me, even though it was very hard for me to even conceive, very hard for me to come into agreement with, because I was just like, what? I have nothing to say, right? So when my father's saying all this stuff, I don't even see it. I don't even hear it. I don't even think I have anything that's worth or valuable saying. And so some of you are still in that place. I don't believe I have what it takes. I don't believe I have anything to give. And those are the things that you got to work on, because it's really speaking to your value and your own self-worth. So if you walk around with low self-worth, low self-value, then people will deal with you the way that you deal with yourself. And this is why, if you don't know exactly what it is that you're called to do, you got to at least know that you're rare. Start there. And if you don't know what's been said about you from the beginning of time, before you even came into this realm, the first thing you need to do is get in his presence. Now, when you look at it like this, like before we came into this realm, we were continually, habitually, perpetually in his presence. So now we come into this earth realm and everything is sensual. Everything is based off of what we see, what we hear, what we feel. And so we lose sight of who we are in the spirit. And the only way that you're going to be able to get back to a place of alignment is to get in his presence. And so that's what prayer is. I think we have, like, I don't know, misconceptualized prayer in like, God, I thank you for waking me up this morning, thank you for my family, and you just keep it moving and not realizing, no, this is your time to commune. This is your time to get your orders. Like, I look at it like when Christ was walking this earth, and I know y'all about to take me to Bible study, but when Christ was walking this earth, like, he had the original Bluetooth. He did not do anything on his own accord. He was here and he said, I only do what the Father says do. But how can we do what the Father says do if he don't have our ear? How can we hear? How can we get in alignment if we've never given him our ear? We don't even know what to do. So now we aimless. Now we burnt. Now we bored. Why? Because we don't even know what the directions are, what the orders are. You got to get orders every day. You got to get in the presence every day, because that's where you were prior to even coming into this realm. And so this is how you start finding yourself just disjointed and out of alignment, because you don't even know what the original plan for your life was. Y'all, who's trying to take me there? Or is it me? Is it me or is it y'all? Because somebody trying to pull on the anointing. I don't know. Somebody's doing something. I can feel it in the spirit, but I thank him. And so we got to figure out what that is. So we got to get in his presence. And that's what prayer is to me. Like, I literally have to get still. I have to be able to not just speak to him. I need to hear from him. Like he said, he would order my steps. He said the steps of a righteous man are ordered. What does that mean? That he literally wants to direct you. He wants to show you every detail about your life. But if you haven't been to the headquarters to get the orders, like you're gonna be misguided. Anyway, y'all, let me bring it down. Let me bring it all the way down. It's 6:53 in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know what time. It might be 10 o'clock for y'all, and I appreciate it. What time is it in Ghana? Hey, Joyce, really love you. I really needed coaching to know truly who I am. What time is it in Ghana? I need to know what time it is in Ghana, and thank you for tuning in. I really want you all to get free. I really want you to be in a place that you're supposed to be. It's 1:53 a.m. in Ghana. Get out of here, girl. 1:53. Thank you for joining me. As I told you all before, my goal is to go live twice a week. This week, I was only able to go live today, but I will be back twice next week. Make sure you open your email so you can join me on the next one. If you have struggles in your business, challenges in your business, reach out to me. I would love to use that as a topic. If you are looking for coaching on the hair side and or on the business mindset, personal side, this is what I do. Right? Especially when I get fired up. I think one of the biggest things that get me fired up is when I hear somebody that's super defeated. I'm like, listen, I don't care how I feel. If somebody start talking crazy and talking in doubt and disbelief, I get fired up. I'm like, do you know who you are? And so that's just the heart that God has given me, and also the gifting that he's given me to help people believe in themselves, because you could not go further than your belief about yourself. You cannot go you cannot go beyond your belief about yourself. So we have to deal with the root. We got to get to the belief system. I don't believe something about myself. There's this statement that says, who do you think you're not? Who do you think that you're not? This is what's stopping you from going to the next level. You're not in alignment with the truth. You're not in agreement with what he said. So you got to bring it up. Because God says, my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. My ways are higher than your ways. So high is the heaven above the earth. So greater are my thoughts than your thoughts. So we have to realize that God is thinking so highly of us that we gotta get to that place. We gotta trust that, oh, if he thinks that, then that's what it is. Not thinks that, if that's what it is, then I'm the one that's out of place. So I gotta go, y'all. But y'all have a blessed night. Take care, and I will see y'all next week. Tune in to rareessenceacademy.com. Get on the email list if you are not on the email list, so you can get the notification. But it always is somewhere around 5:36-ish. So I'll see y'all then. Y'all take care. Peace.